Today's conversation is a juicy one. My guest Jenn Doheney goes deep into her personal burnout experience and what recovery looked like for her. Yoga played a pivotal role for her, and we dive deeper than ever before into what both she and I mean when we use the term yoga. We talk a bit about yoga philosophy and its relevance to burnout prevention and recovery. Jenn also has a corporate background, and she's now an expert in designing employee wellbeing programs. So we also get stuck into the topic of wellbeing programs for employees, what goes wrong, and how to go beyond lip service when designing the wellbeing program for your organization. I hope you enjoy this episode. Hey there. Welcome to the Burnout Isn't Necessary podcast, where we delve into the world of stress, burnout, and the science behind it all. Over a decade ago, I faced burnout as a management consultant, experiencing an emptiness that I wouldn't wish on anyone. But here's the truth. My burnout wasn't necessary, and it's not necessary for you either. I'm Hannah Holden, and together with my amazing guests, we share our real-life experiences with stress and burnout. We explore the science behind stress, offering practical tips to help you navigate those challenging moments in life. Our goal? To empower you to prevent burnout from taking over your life. I am passionate about stress mastery and preventing burnout, and I'm here to guide you to a more balanced, fulfilling life. So let's go. Burnout isn't necessary, and I'm here to show you why. Hello and welcome back. Today I'm excited to be joined by Jenn Doheney. Jenn is the founder of WELLOGA, a business that creates bespoke corporate wellbeing strategies and programs. WELLOGA has been going for 4 years and has worked with a number of companies, and I have seen some fantastic testimonials. So welcome, Jenn. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me, Hannah. I'm looking forward to having a chat with you.
I wanted to start with a little bit about your personal history and how you became interested in the wellbeing space. So if you could give us some insights, that'd be great.
Yeah, of course. Hannah, my background is corporate. So I worked in a corporate capacity for about 16 years. I loved it. I actually didn't leave that world for any other reason other than I kind of felt that I needed to because of burnout. And how did I get there? So basically, I am Canadian. I currently live in Toronto. My work brought me to Dubai. It was a really exciting time for me. Get to experience a new place and a new job, and I really loved it. Actually, it was interesting being in a place that was full of adventure. And I almost as soon as I got there, I started feeling unwell. And sort of what does that mean symptoms wise? I had some low energy. I maybe had some problems with mood and problems with sleep and sort of different things going on. And I just sort of chopped it up to the fact that it was a big change, right? You can think about anything that you do that's a big move or a job change. There's always an adjustment period, right? But about 3 months after I was there, I started losing my hair in a very real and visual way. And of course, it was terrifying because I'm a female, and my job was largely to be the person who was the liaison between people within projects. So I did a lot of face-to-face speaking and presentations and things of that nature. And as females, we care about our aesthetics. You know, I'm no different than anybody else. And I felt a lack of confidence as my hair started to fall out. Now, I met some amazing people when I arrived, which was great. A lot of women and a lot of women from other countries. And a lot of people told me who were also fair like me, with similar hair like me, that a lot of women go through this adjustment phase of moving into the desert because it's just a totally different climate than what we're used to. And so I sort of thought to myself, you know what, I'm going to let it go. I'll just assume that I'm going to adjust like everybody else did. And I let so much time pass. And, the problem just got worse and worse and worse. And so the hair is the obvious part, because I think a lot of times when we feel stressed, it's sort of that outside, like, can people tell? Right. But at the same time, I started to have less and less energy and so on and so forth. So, I guess one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is I didn't acknowledge the fact that I was feeling stressed and that my hair was falling out. I wanted to buy more expensive clothing and buy lots of supplements, and kind of like anything in a bottle that would promise to make me feel better was really what I was going after, as opposed to trying to figure out the root cause of the problem. And of course, we're educated women, we're educated people. Why do we do that? Why do we just try to cover up the problem? Well, the truth is I loved my job. I loved all the travel I was doing. Life was very exciting, kind of like fireworks. And, I lived there for 4 years, and about 3.5 years in, I look so different than I do now. I would have been about 36 years old when I arrived. I lived there for 3 years, and I aged just a tremendous amount because of all the hair loss. And I was really trying to cover up everything. And at the end of the problem, that when I was there, I started losing memory, and I started losing some of my ability around speech. So it was really quite scary. And I went to a doctor, and because it's not your own country, it's a really hard thing to I guess, accept a medical, what do I want to say? I guess it's very hard to accept a medical diagnosis when it's not with the doctors that you know over the course of your life and maybe that you trust because they're new and they don't know your history. So I decided I just needed to resign from my job. And I ended up going back home. Now, they didn't accept my resignation. They were very kind and said, why don't you just go home for 3 months and see if you can feel better and then come back? And so I did that. And as soon as I arrived, Hannah, the doctors told me that I had adrenal exhaustion, I had hypothyroidism, and I'm also celiac. So it was kind of like the perfect storm. I specifically remember my doctor saying to me, both my medical doctor and a natural doctor saying, I can't believe you're still standing on your feet with how like out of balance your blood work was and how low my energy was. So the first thing they said to me is stop working out, stop lifting weights, and stop running. And the only thing I was really allowed to do was yoga and walking. And you and I were having a brief conversation before this started. And it's the whole idea about when you're so hard on your body in terms of exercising and doing all these other things, when your body is out of balance. So for me, it was my hormones. I have hypothyroidism and these other issues. This was causing my body to sort of unravel when I was in the desert. And I was exercising because I felt bad. So anytime I ever had a bad mood, or I felt low in energy, or I felt, unmotivated, I would always put on my running shoes and go for a run. I love to lift weights. I loved aggressive exercise. I was a serious type A. Like I always just wanted to be busy and, doing and doing and moving and really never gave myself a chance to rest. So I was a little bit of my own worst enemy in terms of not being able to take a rest. And that's really where all the lessons began is that I realized as an adult that I wasn't able to truly rest. And so I took 3 months. I lived in Canada for that time and I took really good care of myself. My hair started to grow back. And I was doing yoga. And instead of eating really overly raw and healthy foods, because I used to do that as well, kind of drink broccoli for breakfast, Hannah, just so that I could get as much nutrition into my body as possible, because I always felt like I was sort of on the edge of having all this energy. And I wasn't doing myself any justice because it's really hard to digest all these raw foods. And instead, I was eating sort of like lightly boiled foods, things that were from my own country that were grown locally. And my constitution's that sensitive. Anyways, I'll wrap up the story, but basically what happened is I started to grow my hair back. My hair went back or my face went back to this sort of like pink, happy color. My inner sparkle came back. My memory started coming back. My speech cards started coming back, all these things. And it was all just because my hormones were out of balance. And I went back to Dubai with medication for my thyroid problem, as well as a new way to exercise and take care of my body. So instead of being the hard, aggressive runner and weightlifter, I was a gentle yoga and walking person. And I moved to the beach and I lived there for 3 months and my hair all fell out again. So it was a really interesting time for me in terms of, I guess I realized that burnout doesn't always have to do with your job and the work that you're doing, but burnout can come from lots of different things. And for me, I just realized that even though I wanted to stay so badly, it was one of the best times in my life professionally. Such a great company, and I was traveling and so much fun. That I had to leave because I didn't even look like myself anymore. And it didn't matter what I was doing to take care of myself. It just wasn't worth it.
Hmm.
You paid such close attention to my story. Thank you.
And so do you believe that it was just simply the environment, and that, had you been able to do the same job but from Canada, perhaps it would have been different? So you feel that it was the environment in the desert, the and everything else that went with that, I guess, the diet, the fact that you couldn't access the stuff that you would have got at home. Is that the where you feel the root cause was?
Yeah, Hannah, I think that that is the root cause. If I had to explain it to everyone, I always feel like when I talk about burnout, that people automatically say, "Oh, you were working too hard and too many hours, and you couldn't handle it." And I always thought, wasn't that funny? Because the job over there ended up being the most balanced. I had my weekends off and my evenings free, and I enjoyed what I was doing. So to answer your question, I think yes. But you and I today are going to talk about burnout and sort of healing and how do we go through that and recognizing, as there we used the word awareness earlier, right? And so I think because I'm celiac and I've been celiac for a really long time, a lot of people who have celiac disease are predisposed to having a thyroid problem. And when your body is under duress from whatever reason, a lot of those things can start to come up to the surface. So it's not uncommon. You would find someone with celiac disease and a thyroid problem in combination. But because I don't know anybody in my family who also had a thyroid problem, I didn't think that that was something that I had to deal with. And when I had all these symptoms, it just wasn't something I was looking for. I was just trying to figure out, how do I get my energy back? How do I get my mood back? How can I improve my sleep? So you're sort of looking for this outside solution.
Right.
Um, so I think that maybe my body was under duress because of the environment, but it's combination, right? I also didn't acknowledge the symptoms in a way of, let's find the root cause, because it was just inconvenient to take time off or to do whatever I need to do to take care of myself. I just wanted it to go away so I could continue to carry on, be busy, do all the things that we want to do. Yeah. Does
Yeah,
that
yeah.
answer your question?
Yeah, and we're all human. We just want it to go away as quickly as possible. We'd all like just a silver bullet for all of our problems.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I was looking at your story and and how you've ended up where you are, there was a time in Bali, and that was part of your journey. What were you doing in Bali, and what did you learn from your time in there? How does it influence what you do now?
Yeah, of course. Hannah, I think the first part of the story I just told you is also, I feel like it's kind of foundational when people meet me for the first time, because there's a lot of different kind of steps that got me to where I am now. And so, corporate A-type personality, loves her job, becomes burnt out for all the reasons that we talked about. I loved being an expat. It was such a cool experience, and I really didn't want it to end. So I decided that I would move to Bali for a couple of months and heal, because I'd learn all these wonderful things like slowing down and eating a different way and being more mindful and aware. I thought I could do it in Bali and kind of give myself a little gift. I'd never been able to take time off of work before, and so it's really nice. Anyways, I went there and intention to live there for 3 months and then move to another country to do the same kind of job I was doing, but maybe in a different environment. And I did my yoga teacher training. You're going to laugh at this story. I took my yoga teacher training not to be a yoga teacher, but because I thought it wasn't right to take 3 months off and not accomplish something. So,
Yeah. That's a very type A personality.
and I remember going through the first 30 days of the teacher training. And of course, I mean, I love sports, I love movement, I loved yoga, but I really didn't know that much about yoga philosophy and
Mhm.
about alternative ways to live your life, and just having a really gentle mindset, being easier on yourself, learning how to take breaks, learning how focus and concentration really works in terms of your anatomy and your brain function and all of that. And I fell in love with it. So suddenly my passion for yoga and the movement, for me, yoga is everything. And when we think about yoga, people always think about the asana and the movement, but I mean, it's just such a huge holistic practice. I know you love yoga too, don't you?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And yoga balances your hormones, right? It helps you sleep better. It gives you a better mood. It can help with your stress levels. I mean, it is an amazing practice.
Mhm.
And learning how to do meditation and all these types of practices completely changed my world. And I ended up living there for a year and a half. And I've done umpteenth amount of yoga teacher trainings ever since. And of course, I am a certified yoga instructor, and I do that as well under WELLOGA. So you never know what life is going to bring, right? Uh, I guess, Hannah, I think the biggest learning for me while I was there is I really wanted to turn this, let's call it an unfortunate life experience, into a silver lining, into something positive. And for a long time, I was really embarrassed to introduce myself as a yoga instructor. I wanted to tell people that I was an executive leader at a corporate business because that was my identity. I'm not married. I don't have children. And, people would say, oh, what are you doing in Bali? And I would say I was taking a break. And this is what I used to do. I used to always tell people what I used to do because would give me confidence and make me feel good about who I am. And then eventually enough time passes, you think like, I need a new identity. Like, who am I going to be okay with? And I need to feel proud and I need to feel good. So I started to tell my story to people about the fact that I lost my hair and these different things happened. And I was so nervous to tell people before because I thought they were going to think, oh, she's not in control. She couldn't take care of herself. And every time I told my story, the whole room would be full of people with eyes like saucers looking at me. And almost immediately afterwards, someone would tell me a story about their experience of burnout, whether from so many different things, Hannah, like you know, deaths in the family and divorces and losing jobs and like, just
Mhm.
everybody had a story to tell. And as soon as you kind of open up and tell people that, yeah, this happened to me, and give people a different perspective, it was just like a rush of people coming and talking to me. And I thought, oh, I can do more of this. I'm actually okay talking about it. And suddenly my new identity started to form. I helped a woman with a startup company when I was living in Bali who was running a retreat for corporate burnout.
Okay.
Yeah, and it gave me a chance to flex my muscles as a yoga instructor and a meditation instructor, but I also helped her start up her business, which also gave me a chance to flex the business muscles, right? And understand what it was like to start a startup. And eventually I just thought, you know what? I'm very able to do this on my own. I don't need to do this for somebody else. And so hence WELLOGA was born. And I thought, if I'm so excited about all this information that I learned, I'm not an A plus anymore or a personality, I'm a B minus. But the B minus can go back into the corporate offices, which I loved so much. I had so many amazing leaders and companies that I work for. And I thought, if it's changed my life this much, I bet so many people in that environment will also appreciate this knowledge because we don't get taught it in school, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm resonating with a lot of what you say, like
Yeah.
you described the yoga experience and the wanting to bring some of that to people who are in the corporate space, who are still, you know, who are struggling with stress, with burnout, with and you've touched on the fact that burnout can have many different causes, but I think it's so different for them to be talking to somebody like you or I who has plenty of experience in a similar environment. So for me, it was I've been working in tech for 20 years and in consulting. So anybody who works in tech and anybody who works in consulting, I completely get it. And I mean, that's not saying that, nurses and doctors and everybody else can't suffer burnout. Of course they can. But for me, those are the people that I really understand. And I think it makes a huge difference to be working with somebody who has that lived experience versus, I've met so many yoga teachers who don't necessarily know anything other than being in the wellness space. And I'm not sure how effective they would be at bringing about change for somebody who's still in the corporate environment trying to maintain their job. They don't want to quit and become a yoga teacher. They want to thrive in their job, but they want some extra tools and support to be able to thrive in their job. So I think that's really great. Something that you touched on and I thought was worth explaining for people was around yoga being so much broader than what we recognize. So you mentioned that everybody has a habit. I think all of our first introductions to yoga is the asana, which is the term in yoga that they use for the physical postures. But for everybody else's benefit, I'm preaching to the converted here. So there are what they call 8 limbs of yoga, and the physical exercise is just one of those 8, and the rest are about how you live your life, about mindfulness, about meditation. And so when I use the term yoga, and I can tell from the way that you use the term yoga,
Yeah.
you mean in a far bigger, broader sense, that it's the whole encompassing of all of the breath work, the mindfulness, the way of living your life, and that for you is the big yoga, the all-encompassing yoga.
Yeah, you got it. And also, I think the values and the belief system that you have, right? And like your purpose, what drives you.
Yeah.
One of the things you talk about going from like one extreme to the other. If I liked yoga when I was in my 30s, it was like Bikram and power yoga. Like the more I could sweat, the better, the happier I was. Not that I don't enjoy a little of that now too, Hannah, but it's of course much more balanced. My one of the biggest aha moments that I have, and actually this is a kind of an interesting little story to share with you as well, is that what I fell in love with was yoga therapy, which were practices around understanding that you can move in your body in a way that's going to keep you active and keep you moving, but still allow you to have the body that you want, and also to really um, keep your body balanced, right? Keep your hormones balanced. And one of the things that I ended up learning in a yoga therapy program, which was specifically around stress and anxiety management, is I remember them talking about why it is that people can't meditate when they're really, really busy people, right? So, like, think about you and I walking into a corporate audience and saying to people, okay, meditation is really great for your brain. It can help you in all of these different ways. It can help you grow your gray matter and be more creative and more focused and better problem solver and all of the things. And it sounds so good. And then you get these really busy people sitting down and they're just like, oh my gosh, there's no way I can do this. I can't do this, because there's a really big spectrum between the doing, the sleeping, and then somewhere in between. And we just don't spend that much time sort of in this center space, right? And I specifically remember being in Bali. And for the first 3 months I was there, I remember I was supposed to be there for 3 months. I thought, oh, I'll be rested by the end of 3 months. And I was almost through the 3 months. And I said, why am I not tired? Well, I was making to-do lists out of like waking up in the morning as I had to go to the beach because I had to go to this class and I had to have, you know what I mean? I was making a to-do list out of nothing because that's how I was used to living my life. And I didn't want to miss the sun and all of these kind of things. And I finally gave myself permission. And I couldn't meditate, by the way, Hannah, at the beginning. I found it really hard, just like everybody else, to sit down and be focused. Uh, and I finally gave myself permission. I was like, well, you can't leave here tired. You just need to miss the sun for a few days and let yourself sleep in. I slept for weeks. I'm not even kidding. Like, I did wake up, but like I probably slept for 3 weeks for about 16 hours a day. And I would just wake up to shower and to eat and not worried about what I was eating, just eating whatever I wanted to eat and going right back to bed. And I will never forget this because it was a very unique time in my life. But I also remember when I got out of that was the first time I was able to really meditate, because you kind of go from living this extreme stress, stress, stress for such a long, long time, and then resting for long enough. And finally you can get to the center.
Hmm.
Does that does that description make sense when I explain it that way?
Yeah, some people who attempt meditation find themselves falling asleep, and perhaps if you're
Yeah.
so deprived of rest that your body enters a state, you're trying to enter a place of meditation, but you find yourself entering a state of sleep. So to be able to bring it back and find that middle ground that you were describing, it makes sense to me that you need to be at a level of rest. So that, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So what do you think was the most important ingredient in your burnout recovery?
Hmm. Uh, Most important ingredient, I'm going to say, I guess, learning to be gentler on myself. Um, of course, there's the awareness piece, right? You need to be aware of how you're feeling so that you don't get so burnt out. So, developing my awareness, I would say, was really important.
Mhm.
The story I just told, the example of feeling like you constantly need to be achieving something and doing something, was ever present in my life. Even getting home from work, if my house wasn't perfectly clean, I wouldn't sit down until it was. You know what I mean? It's just, and you can't live that way. You can't constantly be on, and your only off can't be sleeping, right? And
Mm.
so I'm going to say that the only way I managed to get there was to give myself permission to be imperfect, which is something else I also, and it's something I have to struggle with all the time, right? It's a part of us, right? You need to keep coming back and reminding yourself You can't compare yourself to other people and what they're achieving. You need to really listen to your own energy, your own internal clock.
Mm.
And I think for me, the way that I had to do that is I had to say to myself, you can't do everything, that this is equally as important as getting things done as doing nothing, and finding balance, right? You still need to achieve things and live your life, but there needs to be value behind the doing nothing or the doing something that's peaceful and restful as well. So that's the biggest thing that helped me come out of it.
Mm. I had a feeling you were going to say that it was ditching those to-do lists, the ones that said, no,
Now my to-do list has self-care on it and hanging out with your friends and making sure you go out and so the to-do list just looks different now.
yeah. But you're right, like there are personality traits involved in all of this, and some of those can change, but sometimes some of them are with us for life, and we just have to keep reminding ourselves that it doesn't need to be perfect. I get approached multiple times a week by people telling me how they could help me improve the podcast. They talk about improving the audio quality, improving the editing quality, improving the listening experience, and also improving the listener numbers. And this feedback all sounds fantastic. So I'm now looking to raise funds to make some of these improvements, which is why I'm introducing some affiliate brands to the podcast. When you buy from these brands, I will receive a commission, and my intention is to directly invest that back into the podcast to make those improvements. So today, I would like to introduce a brand called Ekotex. As you will know from listening to this podcast, I am a yoga practitioner, a teacher, a yoga enthusiast, and Ekotex, which is spelled Ekotex, is a brand that is dedicated to creating naturally beautiful, ethical, and durable yoga equipment. So, yoga mats and yoga props. And they're based in Scotland. They design their products to support you as the practitioner and also to support the planet in the process. And they now make a lot of their products locally in the UK, and if not, then in Europe. I use their equipment in my personal practice and also when I'm teaching. I think they offer fantastic value for money and great quality. And of course, also the peace of mind that these are eco-friendly products. So if you're interested in getting yoga equipment, I highly recommend them. And you can check out their products by clicking the link that I've included in the show notes. If you've got questions like whether or not you should be using a block for something or a bolster for something, then I am more than happy to help you with any questions that you have. So just drop me an email. And maybe put something like yoga equipment in the title, and I'll get back to you with my guidance. So thank you for your support with this. Thank you for supporting the podcast. I hope that you love the Ekotex products as much as I do. And now let's get back to the conversation. Show notes. I wanted to shift the conversation to be less about your personal lived experience. I'll talk a bit more about well-being programs, because that's what WELLOGA specializes in. And so I know that I've seen some well-being programs that feel like lip service, and I know that other people have fed that back to me, that it just feels like a sticking plaster, like that the culture is broken, but it's okay because we've got yoga classes on a Friday. So tick, we've done well-being. And so I just wanted to get your thoughts, given this is the space that you're in. What's going wrong and what makes a good well-being program?
Yeah, it's a good conversation. We could also talk for a long time about this. I think I'm pretty passionate about it like you. Um, so before we get started, let's define well-being, okay? Because I think that just makes a lot of sense. So I know that your show tends to focus on mental health, right? Which is like a huge pivotal part of our well-being. But when I'm having a conversation with you, just know that this is my sort of framework. So if you think about balanced well-being, it's really 6 different areas. So it's your physical well-being, it's your mental well-being, it's also your emotional well-being, your spiritual well-being, how connected you are socially, and also environment. So that's 6 different things, kind of a lot of different things, right? Now, the reason that I bring that up, and I think that it's important, is that if you want to be balanced, you really need to be balanced in all these areas of your life. And if you think about physical well-being, it's not just your body, it's how you're moving in your body, but it's also how you're breathing and the food that you eat. They're all really different things, right? Very different subjects. And then, of course, you're an expert in this area, Hannah, but talking about mental health is also really complex, right? It's your awareness, right? Your awareness of the outside world, awareness of you, but it's also about like the words and the thoughts that you have, right? Are you have a positive mindset? Do you ruminate? All those sort of things. But it's also about habits and change, which of course directly relates, I think, to lots of areas in life, specifically corporate. Think about all the management changes, people moving from in office to remote. Like there's always turbulent things, right? So your question is, what is a good program, and why do some feel like lip service? So I think a lot of it feels like lip service because some companies still just feel like they need to check off a box, right? They feel like, oh, it's a thing that's happening right now and people just need to do something. And I think that's becoming less and less. I think the definition of well-being is what you and I just talked about, but then we can talk about the definition about what a well-being program is. So some companies think a well-being program is EAP, which is an employee assistance program.
Mhm.
Now, to me, there's your health before you're sick. There's when you're unwell. Like we'll say sick, let's say unwell, right? Because it could be you could be going through like a divorce or a change, and that could also cause some turbulence in your well-being, right? So we've got healthy, not so healthy, and then needing the help afterwards. So there's things you can do that are preventative, and there's things that you can do afterwards. To me, an EAP program supports people when they are already unwell from a variety of different, which is important and it needs to be there. But to me, that's not a wellness program. That's a part of your sort of medical services, if you will.
Mhm.
And then there's things like discount programs. You get discounts for gyms or restaurants or easy travel and all that kind of thing. And a lot of times they have massage and different things in there, which I think is great. But again, I wouldn't consider that a full wellness program. To me, a wellness program is helping people prevent becoming imbalanced in all these six different areas. And I also believe, personally, from a WELLOGA perspective, that it should be done on company time. Um, One of the things I wanted to highlight to you, Hannah, is that wellness companies don't work everywhere. Or, sorry, not wellness companies, wellness programs don't work in every company. I think one of the reasons that they don't work is a lot of programs specifically focus just on the body and they don't think about things around mental health or emotional health. And if you've got a really physically healthy team and all of a sudden you're rolling something out saying, here's a bunch of fitness classes you can do, but everybody's already doing that on their own, like what's the point? It's kind of a waste. So why not do programs that are going to target the areas of what people need? People might really need to feel socially connected, or they might need to learn about positive mindset, or they might need to learn about being more adaptable because of all the change. Like there's a lot of things, right? So I think that they fall through the cracks because they're not specific enough for the businesses that run them. A lot of companies have great programs and it works in company A, and you think, okay, great, it's worked. It worked. Let's drop it into another company. And then it doesn't work. And it's not because it's not a good program. It's because the people who are there are different ages. It's a different business setup. They've got different stresses. They've got different skill sets. So I personally believe, and in my own experience, that every company kind of needs something different. And it also needs to be something that the people want. Because so many, yeah, yeah, big smile from you, right? I mean, leaders, no matter what kind of a leader you are, let's just say you're the best leader in the world and you want nothing but the absolute best for your team. Just because you think that a particular type of education or wellness experience is going to be fabulous does not mean it's going to fly. You have to get buy-in from your team, or you're just going to be running this like uphill battle. Um,
Yeah.
I'll let you interject there. Tell me what you're
Well,
thinking.
no, I was just reflecting on what you were saying around you really need to know the organization, you need to know the people. And like you said, the example that you gave was, what if you've got a team that are already very physically fit, physically focused, but that's not where their challenges lie. So that makes a lot of sense, that where you really need to start is understanding, the level of change and churn in that business, and the demographics of the people who are working there, the way that they're working. Like, is it remote? Is it how many of these people have even met one another? Because if it's almost entirely remote, maybe they very rarely meet face to face. I think I think that for me is the answer to the question that I was asking about, like, why do some of them feel like lip service? And you're right. Like, I've heard people quote, well, we've got an EAP program, so we're good.
Yeah.
But like you say, well, that's great, but that's only when somebody wants to hit the alarm button. Like, I'm really not in a good space. That's when people reach out to the EAP program. And that doesn't help. That's not well-being, is it? That's just trying to mitigate when it's a bit too late, really. So I think that you've hit the nail on the head, that it has to be bespoke, it has to be relevant, it has to be appropriate for the individuals. So yeah. And so one of the things that I know makes WELLOGA different is that you start by looking at the strategy, rather than like, here's our wellbeing program off the shelf and ready for you. What else makes WELLOGA different? How is your approach different to what you've seen in other places?
Yeah, okay. So good question. There's been a lot of growth, Hannah, over the last 4 years of WELLOGA and what we offer and what we do. But right now, the last year and a half, things have dramatically changed. So what makes us different? So yes, we start off with a strategy. The first thing we do is ask businesses, like, what are your goals for the year? So every company wants to make more money and improve their sales, right? Reduce their bottom line. But what is it that you're trying to do? Are you trying to get more clients to buy into your service? Are you trying to create more creative pitches so that, you can land more jobs? There's a lot of different things that we need to do. And I believe that there are soft skill needs within every business that a company is lacking or needs to improve. So, what WELLOGA has done is we actually match up the soft skill needs to create a wellness program. So, I'll give you a really quick example. So, there's about 10 different soft skills that we've used as sort of like subheadings. So, there's things about how you manage yourself, like your work ethic and how adaptable you are, how creative you are. And then there's other things of how you manage yourself with other people, like your leadership style or your ability to be a part of a team, or how well you are at communicating, or how strong you are at communicating. Now, if I said to you that your business, and this is after interviewing with leadership and so on and so forth and gathering data, if we knew that you needed to land more pitches, or you needed to, that's sort of more of a creative one, but let's say you needed to be a better communicator, stronger relationships with clients and teams, and you landed on verbal communication, you needed to have a stronger ability to be verbal. You might want to learn how to breathe, not because it's trendy and it's cool and it helps with stress and anxiety, but learning how to breathe helps you take a moment before you need to say what you need to say. And it also helps you with the cadence of the way that you speak, right? So suddenly now you're rolling out something that has purpose. You're not just saying, let's breathe because we're doing a wellness program. You're saying, let's breathe. Let's do this together because it's going to help you feel better. It's going to help you do better at your job. You could also think about that, words and thoughts. And you know as well as I do that if somebody tends to be a negative person, they speak with negative language, they tend not to get people on side with them, and they might not be doing a good job as a result of that. And there's a way that we can help them come up with new language and understand, better negotiation skills, better ways to communicate, better relationship building. That's what I think a wellness program is. A wellness program is helping people be happier and healthier, yes, but it's also about putting a program in place that's going to help the business move forward in a way that's practical and makes sense and has purpose. I have lots of fun things to offer. We do things around like pet anxiety, and we've got a stand-up comedian that comes in and to make people laugh, and community building and movement and yoga and all the things you and I talked about already. But what I find is that employees want to do a better job at their job. And so they want to reduce their stress and anxiety, but it's because they want to feel more calm and peaceful at work and be able to solve their problems better. And they want to learn more of those professional skills. I feel like when you frame things in a way that's fun, um, and fun that they can do at work as a group, that's really helpful, and
Mm.
highly attended because they're also asking for it, right, Hannah? That's the other thing that makes us unique, is we don't just let the leadership team decide. We also host sort of like a second level of strategy. So this is your strategy. let's say we give a company 20 things to choose from that's based on what they need. Instead of doing all 20 because they can afford to do 10, we bring the 20 to the team and say to the team, let's have a half a day of wellness. This is what it looks like. Let's choose the 10 best ones together. And then suddenly you don't have to do this big like marketing strategy to say who's coming to conflict resolution, because people are like, I signed up for that one. We chose it, and then your participation rate really goes up.
I think the most interesting and exciting thing that you just said was that I think that so often we think about employee well-being almost as like tending to an aspect of an employee that the employer kind of partially owns, and like they're not the connection between performance, business performance, and learning skills that are really applicable for your role, and the fact that that is connected to somebody's well-being. I haven't heard many people talk about how closely linked they are. And you're right that employees want to be successful at their role, and if they're making an impact, then they are going to feel happier. And we don't need to like give them something just to make them feel happy. But when we do, like I guess I'm saying it's a cycle, it's a circle, and it's self-fulfilling. Like the happier somebody is, the better they're going to perform at work. The better they're performing at work, the happier they're going to be. And we don't need to just kind of theoretically tie well-being activities to business performance. That in fact, like you said, you could teach conflict resolution. Somebody who's perhaps now better at conflict resolution is going to be more comfortable when they are saying no to a client, or navigating a difficult conversation with colleagues. And so it's going to change their skills. It's kind of, yes, they're soft skills, but they're skills that are immediately applicable to their job and make them feel better and more comfortable in their role. So I think that's really interesting about the way that you described the types of trainings that you offer. Yeah.
I wanted to just kind of like tag on a little bit more to what you said too. Like you think about the word stress and anxiety, right? Like we think about something as an example of like, why don't people turn their cameras on at work, right? I do always a lot of kind of research, cameras on when we're working remotely, right? And there's all the reasons that we know that we should turn the cameras on because of all of the nonverbal communication and trust. And, the quick answer is, oh, people just have stress and anxiety, so they don't want to turn the cameras on. And of course, you don't want to push. But the question is, what's behind the stress and anxiety? Well, when I start to dig, it's that people don't feel that they look attractive behind the camera. Might be an example. They might not feel like they live in a house that they can feel proud of. So there's shame and there's embarrassment there. There is the fact that they're not really at the meeting, that they're working on something else at the same time. So there's distraction and they aren't able to have their focus and concentration. Then that's something else you can learn about, right? It's about learning about how do you do one task at a time. It's more effective and more efficient to get more done. And yeah, like there's just so many deeper layers behind that closed camera that you can't just say, oh, somebody has stress and anxiety, that's why they're not having their camera on. It's just like saying if somebody's having problems in an office that is dealing with a lot of racism, let's say in the office, or like lacking to be included, that their job is to be creative. Well, in order to be a creative person, you need to be able to feel comfortable and have a voice and know that it's okay to be different. And suddenly they can't do that part of their job because they don't feel safe in their environment. Do you know what I mean? Like everything is interlaced. It's kind of amazing. And I think when companies are willing to do the work and they really care, this type of strategy work makes so much more sense, because then you don't waste money on doing exercises and facilitating things that are not going to help.
Yeah, and it's like integrating all of the different aspects of employee training into a program. And it doesn't have to be like, yeah, there are technical skills that are involved in jobs, and perhaps that's outside of the scope of what we're talking about. But the fact that negotiation isn't something that I've ever seen referred to as being part of a wellbeing program is just an example of a type of skill set that could be trained. But I totally buy into the fact that people want to be better at their jobs, and anything that makes them better, makes them better at their job or make them happier, make them more comfortable with their job. And just going on training helps with team building. Like if you're all on the same training program together, you're talking about something that isn't like, so it just feels like it's so much more inclusive. I guess what I'm saying is that your definition of a wellbeing program seems far broader and kind of cohesive than what I've heard or seen elsewhere. So thank you for that. Hopefully people have got some pennies have dropped today for them, especially if they're involved in creating their corporate wellbeing programs. I think we should be wrapping up soon. Is there anything else that you feel that you would like people to take away? One of my other questions that I was going to ask you about actually is, what is your most valued habit or practice? So if you were going to take away all of your other wellbeing activities, what's the one thing that you'd still retain?
Yeah, I want to answer that question, and remind me after I answer this question, Hannah, to come back to the word community, because that's one other thing I thought that would be really nice for us to kind of round out the conversation. So, okay, the wellness practice, I am going to say that the best habit I have, and this really does kind of circle back to so many things you and I talked about. I think for a long time, I compared myself to other people, like what's somebody else doing and why can't I do that too? And once you kind of say, okay, Jen is Jen, so and so is so and so, I learned how to start to do my work to align with my own natural energy. So I'm a morning person. And so I started to organize my schedule so that I would do the hardest things that I had to do in the morning when my brain was the freshest. And the things that made me feel excited and like a reward. I mean, I love to meditate, I love to exercise, I like to do these kind of things sort of in the later part of the day so that I have something to look forward to. So that's one thing I'm going to say, do the work aligned with my energy. I feel like then I can get the most out of all of the energy that I have. The other thing, and I think, Hannah, you'll appreciate that as well, because I know that you like yoga and breathing and all of these different techniques. Because I know more about the brain and about brain waves and how our energy works and how our brain works differently when we're trying to solve a problem versus trying to be more creative or to rest and reflect. I use practices like breathing and meditation in my own toolbox that I lean on to bring me into the right mental state before I go into a certain project. So if I need to do a speaking engagement in front of a whole bunch of people, I need to breathe a certain way. I need to give myself sort of like that powerful Jen moment. And there's lots of breathing practices you can do for that. But if you want to sit down and think about solving a problem or working on something creative where you got to tap in a little bit more to your intuition and be a little quieter and sort of give yourself the space to come up with new concepts. You can't be at that I can do it phase, you know. You need to be a little bit more zen and a little bit more peaceful. And I think that you can learn how to get your brain and your being to that state. For me, meditation works wonders for that, but there's lots of other ways that you can kind of be mindful and do different practices to calm your brain down, like art and music and taking time away from your phone.
Okay, so yours is about knowing how your energy works generally and fitting your work in a way that optimizes for where you are through the day. And then the other thing that you've described is how you can kind of work the other way, which is, okay, I'm about to do this piece of work. Where do I want to be energetically? How do I want to feel? Do I want to be on a kind of high and a buzz and really be really kind of magnetic to people in that kind of vibe? Or do I need to actually kind of be more introspective and like creative and thinking outside the box? And so you're thinking not just how do I optimize the ability to do this thing by where I should do it in my day, but also in order to do this thing, how do I optimize my energy for that thing? Yeah. Okay, great.
You did a better job explaining my thoughts, so thank you for making that nice and succinct. You're good at that.
Yes, actually, that is one of my skills of like taking something super complex and like, okay, let's boil this down into something that's manageable. So that is one of my things. I think that's the life of a consultant, right?
Yeah.
Learning
And
how to
Hannah,
communicate complex things.
we were talking about how You do a lot of one-to-one work now, but you're really enjoying working with the one-to groups. I think that there would be lots of clients with WELLOGA that would benefit from your expertise to talk to a group. So I don't know, maybe you and I could partner on something like that as well.
I would absolutely love to. Yeah. So obviously, I'm in the UK. If you had clients that were I'm commutable to London. So yeah, if it's in person, then then that sounds fantastic. And that was actually one of the questions I was going to ask you about WELLOGA, because you're based in Canada, but you've got a global client base.
Yeah. Yeah. So we do have clients mostly in the UK and Canada and the US, but 90% of the work that we do is virtual online, including the strategy work. Lately, I'm going to say over the last year or so, more of the Toronto clients and a few US clients have brought us in to do things in person, which of course is a joy. You were saying earlier how nice it is to go in and like see all the live faces, which of course is a blessing. But yes, we do work with people internationally. So yes, you wouldn't only be able to do things in the UK if we work together. The world is your oyster.
Sounds amazing. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, was there anything else that you wanted to say to the audience? Anything that you thought that you would like people to know before we wrap up?
Yes. Well, I did want to say thank you so much for having me. So I really do appreciate being here. It's a pleasure to talk to you. Hannah, I think the one thing I wanted to say, kind of unassociated with myself and the business and all of that, I think something that I really think is important is that wellness is not a solo endeavor. And, I would never want to put down anybody else's business ideas or intentions when it comes to making people feel better, healthier in any way at all. But if you think about all the things out in the world that are, more apps, more trackers, more things that are just things for us to do in addition to the things we already have to do, and they're all done alone. It's nice to do that, but just make sure to round out your wellness practices with things with group, with conversations like, we're talking about obviously the groups today, meeting in an office, but even you and I having a chat today, it's so healthy, right? A chat on the phone, doing things with people and being imperfect. You can go and play your sports game and not be the best person on the team or take care of yourself in a way that feels good, but with friends. I think it's really important that wellness is not a solo endeavor. It's really about community and connection. And we can't forget that. I think a lot of stress and anxiety comes from us being isolated. So
yeah. Okay. So I hope that that's resonated with other people. It certainly felt like that was a message for me today.
No.
The thing that I miss the most about my corporate job is my team, is
yes.
having people that I worked with, people to bounce ideas off of, people to collaborate with, be able to review their stuff, have somebody review my stuff. That is what I miss about being in the corporate world. Otherwise, I'm very happy with what I'm doing, but I do miss my team. And I have been so obsessive about wanting to create the impact that I want to create with the podcast, with my program, etc., that I have this habit of coming here into the studio and spending a lot of time on my own and being so, virtual. I think that's one that I could definitely work on. So thank you for that. And thank you for joining me. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, same to you.
If you'd like to find out more about Jenn's work, then you can go to her website, which is www.welloga.space. And that's Welloga spelled WELLOGA. So www.welloga.space. You'll find this link along with a link to the free burnout assessment and training that Jenn mentioned in the show notes. And I'll also pop her Instagram link there so you can follow her on Instagram too. Thank you for being part of Burnout Isn't Necessary. Our aim is to assist you in navigating stress and preventing burnout. If you found our conversations valuable, please consider subscribing and taking a moment to rate the podcast. Your feedback is essential. I want to hear from you. If you have questions or ideas for future episodes, share them with me. Your input can shape the content that we create. A common question I receive is where to start in managing stress, and everything starts with awareness. Stress impacts each of us in a unique way, and some stress symptoms can seem a little random, so I've created a checklist of symptoms to help you better understand how stress shows up for you. There's a link in the show notes. And a quick reminder, this podcast is presented for educational and entertainment purposes only. It's not a substitute for professional advice. Stay tuned for more episodes, and until next time, take care of yourself.